Here's an example of a due on sale clause. When people, like lawyers especially, right? I'm not sure that the lawyer really says this, but they leave an implication for their client that if the property transfers, the bank is going to call the loan due, that it triggers the due on sale clause. It triggers an option. The lender now has the option to actually accelerate the loan because the property was transferred. Now, I've even heard people say things that might be true practically, but are not definitively true. For example, some people who've done a lot of these transactions who are now teaching it, taking properties over sub 2 are saying things like, we'll just give the deed back to the original seller and convert it to a lease option. The lender that is totally fine with that, and then the due on sale clause is no longer triggered. But you don't squash or trump the lender's ability to call the loan due after the property has been transferred by just giving them the property back. If the lender wants to call it due after it's transferred, they could call it due. Okay, now it might be a reasonable solution, not debating that, but the idea that these are fail-safe checkmate types of solutions versus the lender is just complete nonsense. And I don't like the way I see people who really don't know what they're talking about because it's social media challenging me on this kind of stuff. They've never even done a deal. They've just heard this from somebody that they respect. And that's fine, but I can tell you that the first time a lender says they don't want to do that, and then you're stuck. Now, I'm not saying to worry about this due on sale clause, but I'm trying to get to the truth of how things go down. Do not think that you eliminate the bank's option. You don't eliminate the bank's option. Hey folks, it's Joel. I know what it's like to maybe not know exactly where to start with real estate investment because that was me 30 years ago, at least $30 million ago as well. So look, do yourself a favor. Stop being so freaking shy. Here's my cell phone. Text me right now, 702-364-2323. I bet it won't take me very long to respond to you, and it will be me personally. I'll help you with whatever you need. I've got your back. Now let's get back to the video. Again, at its option, okay? But if a borrower does enter into a contract of sale. Now, here's what I want to point out to you. And I'm saying this in a positive and a negative way. So pay attention to what I'm saying here, right? You're going to hear me say, I'll talk to an attorney and the attorney will say something like, well, the bank can call the loan due once we transfer it. We wouldn't want to do that. And I'm not going to allow my client to do that, meaning, the seller. And if it gets to that kind of an impasse, I might say to the attorney, well, look, your client still wants to do the deal. We want to do the deal. We could probably find some middle ground. I might go for a land contract agreement for deed, something like that. But ultimately, I'm just gonna say what we'll do is we'll just rent the property from them. That way they retain the deed, and the due on sale clause, the option for the bank to call the loan due, is not triggered. And we will just have an option to buy the property during the term of the lease. And when we're ready to actually close the sale and get everything paid off, that's when we'll exercise our option. You can live with that, can't you? Attorneys always say yeah, as long as their client's okay with that. And the reason they always say yeah is because they know ain't no bank gonna call a loan due based on the property having been leased. However, I want to point something out to you, and you'll see why I'm making this point in a second. Due on sale clauses, go look at your own mortgage if you own a house. Go look at the due on sale clause in there. Just Control F, enter due on sale or acceleration, you'll find it. Look at this one. Okay, so if they enter into a contract of sale, convey means sell the property, right? Transfer the property. But look at this. Or leases such property, or even any part thereof, renting a room, Airbnb, the casita, for a term more than 3 years. Now, you're not going to Airbnb a casita for more than 3 years, but you might rent your house for more than 3 years. Do you know how many people in America have rented their house for more than 3 years? They got an owner-occupant loan. They had trouble selling it. They're like, oh, we'll just rent it. We'll go get another one. We'll have the income coming in to pay off that debt that we had at 2.75%, and we'll actually make cash flow on it, and we'll get appreciation. No need to sell. But now you're an investor. You got the loan as an owner-occupant, and now you're an investor. And that wasn't really the intention between the deal you made with the bank. So the bank puts this stuff in their contracts, their mortgage contract, that if you lease this for more than 3 years, we can accelerate the loan. We can call it due. You ain't never heard anybody talk about this, have you? Except me. And nobody talks about it because it ain't going to happen. But what I'm trying to point out, meaning the bank's not going to call the loan due because you leased your house. I have never heard of that actually happening. I literally have never heard of that actually happening. But this is front and center in almost every mortgage. But I've never, literally never in 30 years heard of it happening. Now, I have heard of loans being called due when the property is conveyed, transferred, right? It's just rare. A few times out of 1,000 maybe, right? So why am I even bringing this up? Because I want to reiterate that just because the bank has the right to exercise certain options within this mortgage contract, it doesn't mean that they are going to. The banks load these things up with all kinds of things. Can you imagine if they decided to call the loan due based on leasing a house or any part of it? Well, I was having trouble making the payments on it, so I leased the casita for 4 years to my cousin. Well, according to the language of this contract, they could call it due, couldn't they? According to the language of the contract, if you convey the title, even if the loan is being paid, they can call it due. But they just don't, folks, because it's not a good business decision. But that doesn't mean they shouldn't have the options to do these things. Look, man, I go to the buffet here in Vegas sometimes. There's some great buffets, like at the Wynn, lobster, like gigantic crab legs, tuna, steaks. I mean, and it's not even that expensive, and it's good food. But I ain't getting ready to eat everything on the menu. I like having the options, right? Well, the bank, when they structure a deal with a consumer, they want to have every option possible. They've got the best lawyers, and they load these things up with everything. So naturally, they're going to have a lot of options. Doesn't mean they're going to eat it. They have beef lingua at the Wynn buffet. I ain't getting ready to eat none of that, but it is nice to have the option. It costs us a little bit more money to do this, but we can actually prevent the due on sale clause from being an issue. What we'll do is we will just have you, talking to a realtor, right? We'll have you have your client, the seller, put the property into a land trust, and then we will simply be buying that land trust. The loan can't be called due because it's put into a land trust because of the Garn St. Germain Act. So far, everything is true, right? If you put a property into a trust for estate planning purposes, the bank can't call it due, even though the property did transfer. It was conveyed into a trust. However, the banks aren't stupid, because what my man is then saying is once we've bought the property, or bought the trust, so to speak, we will have your seller assign the beneficial interest in the trust to us. So we avoid the due on sale clause that way, because your seller put it into a trust for estate planning purposes and then they sold it to us, but not in the traditional way. They just assigned the beneficial interest in the trust. We'll generally buy properties in land trust just for some privacy in case there's like a judgment. But then and it is true, you could assign, in other words, you're the beneficial interest to the trust. You have a trustee who owns the property, or the trust owns the property. The trustee is named. And the beneficial interest is who actually owns the property, but it's not on public record. So since it's not on public record, you don't even do anything on public record other than you just go meet at an attorney's office or whatever and assign the beneficial interest that you had over to somebody else. And what does that do? Oh, it avoids the due on sale clause. You know what else it does? It avoids paying transfer taxes to the county. Now, what do you think is going to happen if you're under a deposition, or if the bank doesn't believe you and you get questioned? If you lie, now you're committing bank fraud. And what do you think is going to happen if you get before a judge and the judge learns that you're buying property by having sellers put it in a trust and assigning beneficial interests over, and maybe you were doing it to avoid those county taxes in the county where the judge is elected or put in place, appointed? You think the county wants their money? Folks, these little gimmicks and tricks, they're cute. I could see, why people would utilize them. But I'm just telling you, you're going to be way better off in life operating with transparency and full disclosure instead of trying to trick. That's what's really got me gassed a little bit about where this industry is headed. Everyone's got these little tricks, like selling cars sub 2. So totally illegal in Nevada. Like, I could actually show you the stat. I don't even have to, just Google it. Can you sell a car subject to in Nevada? No. But there's YouTube videos from, Schmendrick Central on doing exactly that. It's illegal, like literally illegal. It's like there's a statute clearly stating that. And that this is the stuff that gets promoted. You know why? Because nobody checks into it. Except for people who have a little bit more experience in life and know to look into things before you just believe. But bad ideas are bad ideas, whoever says them. Very good ideas come from there too. Okay, but it's just like, you could be having some lobster bisque soup. It's delicious, but if there's a cockroach in there, it ruins the whole soup. You know what I mean? So it's just like, Why don't we just be authentic, genuine, and tell it like it is right from the beginning? And that's what I'm going to encourage you guys to do as we go through this due on sale clause stuff. Quit gaming the system, tricking the system. There's no need to do that. You're not going to lose very many deals, if any, by trying to reassure somebody of something that isn't assured.